Ladies and gentlemen, we out here changing lives. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Rich by Monday podcast. This is episode 13, right?
Yep.
13? Lucky number
hmm
13. I'm your host, Jared Wilkins, aka the Google Grad.
And I'm Dorrance Creighton.
There we go.
We
Welcome back.
almost skipped 13,
Yeah. Well,
like an elevator.
I was thinking though, should we skip it? Like as in we just don't do it that week, or we just drop 14?
Just name this 14.
Yeah.
Episode 14. And what happened to 13? Well, I'm not superstitious in that way anyway, so
Me
I don't
neither.
care.
I thought it would be funny, but then like when I really
Right.
thought about it, I was like, it's only funny to me.
Yeah.
Like only I would laugh at some dumb shit like that.
That's the best
Um,
funny. Like, what happened to 13? We like, he.
yeah. Who knows?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, man. So number 13, man. It feels good.
Yeah.
We
So what's been
passed the
going on?
whole quarter now. 12 weeks is a quarter, right? So
Yep.
we got a whole quarter worth of content
Four
on the
times
internet.
three is 12 every
Yeah.
time.
Make sure y'all like and subscribe. Hit the notification bell. You gotta do some housekeeping up front. Um,
Yeah. Tell a friend. Tag
absolutely
a
tell a
friend.
friend. Shout out to all the new subscribers. We officially hit, I think, 54.
Oh, that's what's
So
up.
yeah, I think we have 54 now. Hey man, I'm happy. Like 50
I
people?
don't,
Yeah.
I'm just laughing because I don't even keep up with it. I'm just like, oh, cool.
Well, because
Welcome.
I get the notifications, like it'll say you
Yeah.
got a new subscriber and all that.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes they're random. Sometimes you can kind of tell where they come from. But it
Mm-hmm.
also doesn't show you all of them, like because not everybody makes their subscriptions public. So
Oh, okay.
sometimes it just changes and you don't know who it is, right? But
Ah, I know that was a
um,
thing.
yeah. So but it's been like moving up the past, like we've been getting like one a day for a cool
Mm-hmm.
little, at least. The other day we got like 20 out of nowhere. Um,
Mm.
but hey man, 50 people, like it's 50 more than
Man,
you know.
that's a full room. If you've ever stood up in front of an audience and spoke, like 50 is a lot of people.
Hmm.
Like that's
It's a packed room.
no little feat at all.
Yeah, it's a packed room.
So
It ain't a
now I'm nervous.
stadium or nothing, but now you nervous. Nah,
More
man,
opportunities to get canceled.
I feel like that's inevitable. Just because we, in a way, we're like old school. I think naturally something that's normal to us is cancel worthy.
hmm I don't mind. I don't mind about it. I say that jokingly, but
Me too.
it's one of those things where it's usually the people who don't like what you're saying, they're not part of the group. So usually the cancellation comes from outside.
Hmm.
Just like I was watching a comedian the other day, and he was making jokes about a guy in a wheelchair, and he was like, the guy was laughing and everything, and they're having a good time, and the guy in the wheelchair after the show was like, well, thank you for acknowledging me. Like people never kind of make me part of the show, and during the show, somebody in the back was like, hey, you can't, like, I'm offended. You're talking about him. He's like, how are you offended? And like, he's having a good time. So it's one of those things where it's always somebody will pop up and say, I'm offended by that.
I feel like there should be like some type of protocol where you check with the group first or the person before you
Mm-hmm.
go public uh with your
Like send
being
an email.
offended. Yeah,
How offended
like
can I be?
like send them a letter. Like, should I be mad for you? Yes or no? Like,
Yeah, that bad for you is ridiculous anyway.
speaking of
Well, I
that,
guess they call it.
everybody's mad right now anyway. Understandably, and it's justified because, of course, Juneteenth is now an official holiday.
Mm. Yeah, see, we end up having our blackity black shirts on today. Like we
Yeah, you know
celebrated
what? I
the
didn't even.
milestone.
You know what's crazy? I had to go. I had to go to Manhattan Beach earlier, and
Mm,
to take my computer and to get fixed. And Manhattan
mm,
Beach in the Village is like it's cool, but like South Bay is a different. Like for us, it's a little different. You know what I mean? Like it's cool
mm,
down there, but like you know they know it's you. So I'm walking around
mm,
and I'm not even paying attention that I have this shirt on,
mm,
and just you get certain looks
mm.
that and it kind of makes sense now, like because I didn't realize I was like I'm wearing this on the day that and so
Mm,
they people might have felt a certain way, or
right.
they're like, oh, you're trying too hard, or maybe somebody
Mm,
was like, oh, that's cool because you got, I don't know, but I did notice like there was like a number of extra eyes, and a couple
mm.
people were really nice to me, which is weird. Like I'm not used to people being like that nice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I just
So
sent you that video when they were having um in Huntington Beach. Yeah. What was it? I
oh
want to
yeah,
say a white power rally, but
that's
the
what it was.
White
that's
Lives
what
Matter
that's what it
rally
was. Like that's what they
out
called
there.
it.
Yeah. And I was like,
Yeah.
okay. You had counter protesters show up, and I was like, it's nice down there though.
Yeah, but Huntington is not, Huntington is it's not for us.
It's
Um,
crazy.
but anyway,
Yeah.
enough of all that madness because who cares? Um, but,
Right.
other than that, man, I mean, this week has just been kind of just slowly dragging along. You know,
Mm.
I had to
Really? It seemed like the week went fast.
nah, for me it's been like one long day, and then yesterday like earlier in the day I was like really really tired, and then I had to go run some errands, and I went and got you know a caffeine boost,
Mm-hmm.
and then I was up until like 8 o'clock this morning. I couldn't
Yeah,
go to
that's
sleep.
wild.
I know. I was like, yo, this
What
is
kind of
not right.
caffeine boost was that? Cocaine?
Man, you know what? I'm never doing it again. Because it's not. Nah, man. Stay away from them energy drinks and all that. Nope.
Yeah.
Nope.
Yeah, stuff's not good for you.
Nah. So
I know I get really turned up off Thai tea
mhm.
because we make it here. Jasmine make it here for me at the house. Like every now and then we'll go to the tea market um, and go get like the real original stuff and make it here. And it's man, because I don't drink caffeine at all. I don't drink coffee in the morning. Um, energy drinks and stuff like that. But them Thai teas have you on, so
Mhm.
I can't drink them all the time. Caffeine
Um.
is a real drug though.
No,
It's
it
a
is.
real
It
life
is.
drug.
It is. I was low key addicted when I was
Mm-hmm.
working. When I was working as an electrician. Um, when I first started doing night shifts, right? So um, I know this is not teaching y'all how to get rich, but um, I ain't talked to
This
him
is
in a while, so we catching up. Yeah. um,
part of the podcast.
yeah, when I was working night shifts, because that was new for me at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Just like I'm used to being up, but not like functional in that way, like physically moving, doing things.
Mm-hmm.
So I noticed that all the guys would either drink coffee, they'd have coffee and bread, like a cake or
Mm-hmm.
whatever from 7-Eleven,
Right.
or they would drink monsters and rock
Mm-hmm.
stars. So that's what got me on it
Yeah.
was doing that. And then what happens is once you go through those, it's like you find the guys who like try to take it up a notch, because they can't, like, one monster is not gonna cut it. This is back when they would
Mm-hmm.
have like the 64-ounce
The
ones,
tall can.
before like people's hearts started exploding and they got sued and stuff.
Yeah. You
Um,
drinking out of brown paper bags.
yeah. So they would go get, I think they were called like red lines or something, where you could
I
only
do remember
drink,
that.
like a quarter of it, and you would
Yeah.
be like bouncing off the walls. So, and for
Mm,
a while I was, because when I stopped doing that, I had to adjust to like the time frames, because what I
mm-hmm.
read was, it's like that's one of the worst things you can do health wise, is like work night shifts,
Right.
because it offsets like when you eat and stuff like that,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not healthy for your body to be trying to go back and forth like that. Um,
Mm.
and so it was really hard adjusting to be up and functional. Maybe that's why I'm up at night all the time, but it just got really hard for me to do that. So during the day, I would always have an energy drink, and then
Mm.
once I came out of the field and I was behind the desk, it's worse, because now it's like all you're doing is pounding caffeine and pounding sugar, and you're not moving.
Yep.
You know,
Yep.
so
I remember the first time I had an energy drink. I think it was a Monster.
yeah, it was
It
with
was probably with
Adrian.
you.
It was me, you, and Adrian. Shout out
Yeah.
Adrian, wherever he is.
Yeah. I ain't seen Adrian in a mile, in a minute.
I
Adrian
remember
Mejia.
that. Yeah, he was like, "Hey man, yo, try this, man. It's good."
Man, I was dancing in the parking lot. I had like 2 sips. I was like, oh no, this is different.
I wonder if it was different. Like the formula was different back then. You know
Had
how
to
they did
be.
Four Locos.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
wonder if it was different back then.
It had to be. Yeah, because they took that off the shelves for a while.
Yeah, I wonder. I wonder if, because you know he used to have them too. Um, Luis. Anytime
Yeah.
I
Yep.
go get our,
Mm-hmm.
get work done on our cars, he'd be like, "Here, take a
Yeah.
Monster."
Yeah. Yep. He sure did. He had the gang, like a whole bunch of packs.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. I remember that.
Yeah. So anyway, I was addicted to caffeine and sugar.
Man.
And safe to say, I've made a semi recovery, because I do be on that. I do be on coffee, which I think certain coffees you might like, but don't go
Yeah, it's
down
one of the
that
things I
road if
just
you
I
don't.
don't I
Yeah,
don't I don't pick up. My
yeah.
dad was a coffee drinker in the morning, but I mean he got up at old dark 30 in the morning to
Oh, it
go work.
helps. It helps.
So yeah.
It helps, man. It
And
definitely
my brother's
helps.
the same way. He's a coffee drinker too.
It
I just
just
never
it
pick it
hit,
up. It make me sleepy.
man. Nah, it hit different in the morning, like because I like bulletproof coffee. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and you can make it yourself. It's basically coffee and butter, but you can actually
Mm-hmm.
buy, like, bulletproof has you can just buy the
Coffee and
beans.
butter.
Yeah,
Butter.
yes, butter. Like you put
Mm.
butter in your coffee.
Mm. Yeah,
Like
that sounds like heart attack.
when I said it out loud, I was like, man, I should have kept that one on the inside. But yeah, but well, it's like a keto thing, because it's like the healthy fats, and I
uh,
guess I don't know. I'm not a health guy. Don't uh don't attack me. But they actually sell. You can go to the store and buy bulletproof coffee,
mm-hmm.
and they have different types. So that's what I do. I'll go buy like the bulletproof coffee, and
Mm.
grind it here and drink it, and it's I
Yeah.
like it.
We have to
I
bleep
like
that
it.
out because they're not a sponsor.
Damn, we said a bunch of stuff. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of money we missing out on. Yo, in spirit of the
That's
show,
funny.
we got to delete all this, because
Delete it all.
delete it all.
That's funny.
But yeah, I mean, the week has been kind of just dragging along. I mean, even I had another conversation with the woman I met with last week, who inherited the
Mm-hmm.
buildings from her parents,
Mm-hmm.
and that's a really sad, unfortunate situation, man. And that's the kind of stuff that just makes me not even want to like do real estate anymore,
Mm-hmm.
because I know it's going to be an emotional battle, like to get her to that point, because we're in the
Mm-hmm.
middle of a moratorium. She has a tenant who's not who's not paying rent.
Mm-hmm.
There's no lease in place. Um, so I mean, to market her property with no income, like we have to basically sell it for land value, which
Mm-hmm.
we probably have to do anyway because of all the code violations.
Mm. Right.
So it's just tough, man. Like it's tough
Mm-hmm.
on that level because knowing that I have to present something to her that isn't gonna be, it may not meet expectations. It's gonna be, well, I know it
Mm-hmm.
won't. It's not gonna meet
Right.
expectations, but it's
Mm-hmm.
like her only way out because the property has been mismanaged for so long and then just dumped in her
Mm-hmm.
lap to try and fix.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
So
It's tough.
here she is, like, living the dream of my parents left me all this stuff. I got all this money. They left me all this property, and you can't even be happy about it
Mm-hmm.
because of how the conditions that you inherited everything in.
Right.
Um,
Well, it's better than being left with nothing. And so
oh, of
she
course,
got better issues,
of
better
course.
problems for sure.
You just don't want. I just don't
But
want to see it go to zero.
yeah.
Like that's my biggest thing is, and that's hard. Like for us, like to really, that's hard for us to really understand. Like when you're communicating that to people, because
Mm-hmm.
there's so many other layers between like that starting point and value. There's so many like emotional layers to what's
Yeah.
actually happening, and trying to explain to her like, like this will break you.
Mm-hmm.
You're trying to
Yeah.
preserve all
It's tough
these
to
things.
get the emotions out of real estate in general. People just really get tied to um their stuff and things. Um, Especially when you talk about legacy, taking on
Hmm.
a parent's legacy, it becomes a whole thing. And if we just stuck to numbers and facts, which I know is hard to do, um, we'll be more profitable for sure. Um, so I got clients now who should have sold a long time ago and upgraded and gotten something else and leveraged their property. But I mean, 20 years later now they can do it. Um, and it's so crazy. It's like it's almost like in this business, people only start to think about doing things when they're in bad health. That's been
Hmm.
like the main thing. It's like they're in bad health and they're like, okay, I have to do something. It's like you're kind of just rushing to do things. Um, I remember some time ago, I had a client pass while we were like,
Yeah,
you know,
I remember you saying that.
doing a like um, doing an evaluation on their building and everything. In talks of numbers, and then one day they just gone. So it's crazy. It's crazy. And then in that situation, I believe um, I believe a daughter took it over. She took it over, but she had some experience in real estate. And after that, the deal was pretty much dead. Um, but yeah, people usually try to make moves once they're at the end of their life cycle.
Hmm.
And the sad part is that the building is usually at the end of its life cycle too. So it's
Hmm.
just like it's almost like it's not the win you would want or hope for, but it's still a win you can deal with if we can get over the emotional standpoint of all these different other things we're dealing
Hmm.
with. And it's super prevalent, especially in our community. Everything's emotional,
Oh, 100%.
super
And
emotional.
I think because and I know we talk about things like from a sense of accountability and you know, well, really just from that perspective, like you have the power, you have the authority to make decisions for yourself and change your lives. That doesn't mean that we don't. like we don't understand that there were other things at play historically. It's just that for me, I can speak for myself when I say I understand that we can't change these things, right? So I can't control how another person feels about us because like of our skin color or whatever, right? But
Mm-hmm.
I can control how like my family and my peers, you know, um, handle their situations.
Right.
I can contribute to that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think when we talk about like gentrification and just owning property in general, uh, I don't think that's the case. But just to make sure it doesn't get lost in translation, we're not saying that these things or the abuse of these things don't exist. It's that we can't control that anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So why would we spend hours complaining about it when when the things that we can control we're not we're not performing.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And so everything becomes emotional because that's like that's just how we operate. We operate on emotions. It takes an event for someone to to make a decision. No
Yeah.
one's really kind of like thinking ahead, and that's the part that sucks the most because you can see it. It's like someone, you remember the Austin Powers movie where like the guy would stand in the way and then like the steamroller would be coming like really really slow,
Right.
and then
Yeah.
he'd be screaming like for
Yeah.
like 30 seconds. Like it's like that. Like
Mm-hmm. The scenes. Yeah.
when one of us come when one of us come into the fold and we're taking a look at the long-term picture, it's like, well, I can see the train wreck a mile away.
Mm-hmm.
Like this is it's inevitable. This is what's gonna happen. But then like the emotions get in the way, and people
Yeah.
thinking you're gonna rob them, and
Uh-huh.
and then the whole just all kinds of just nonsense that doesn't apply to the real world. And
Yeah.
it's when you're someone who's trying to help in the situation to help better things for the community, it gets difficult because you're put in a hard place. It's like, well, I want to help, but do these people even want my help?
Yeah. It's yeah. That's the most difficult thing. I think what's also prevalent in our community is people, they don't want you in their business.
Yeah,
That's
exactly,
like a
exactly.
main thing. It's like,
Hmm.
I don't want this person to know my business. No matter what it is. It can be anything. It can. I don't want them to know my income. I don't want them to know how much income I'm making on this building, how much income I'm generating. It's like I don't want anybody to know the details because um, for whatever reason they may think you trying to rob them or take advantage of them, or or you're going to tell their business to someone else, and it's just not what it is. It's just um, my wife is always saying like I because sometimes she'll refer people to me that might need something, and she's like, I don't know any of his business. Like I think she referred a friend to me, and she was like, oh, the friend starts talking about how she was looking at certain property, et cetera, et cetera. And she was like, I don't know what you're talking about, because like he doesn't share what he does in his business with me.
Yeah, with me.
So it's like if
Hmm.
you telling me what you've been doing, I'm hearing it for the first time, and that's
Hmm.
just how it is. Like um, all my business with my clients are just confidential. Um, and it's not because, well, first she just doesn't ask those type of things, and in general, I talked about it before. I don't like talking about it either. So it's confidential, and I don't care to talk about it.
I mean,
So
and
it's like,
it gets like, because a lot of times, man, when you're doing that all day, that shit can wear on you
yeah,
because you're dealing with people's like you're dealing with everything they have, and it's like they're dumping it on your lap and saying, "Help me,"
yeah, help,
and then so it's like
help.
you gotta when you go home, it's like, man, I need help too. Like you go to your woman
Yeah.
and say, "Help me!" Like I'm recovering right now. Like because it's a
Yeah.
lot. Like it's a lot. You it's all kinds of emotions, especially being a black man in real estate, because I feel like there's other layers to it, because you understand some of the problems
Mm-hmm.
that they're experiencing in a
Right.
way that other people may not.
Mm-hmm.
You
Where
know,
it's more than just transactional. It's like
yeah,
like the full birth of
hundred
it, I
percent.
guess.
Yeah,
You know.
it's that's for me. That's where it weighs on me the most, because it's like I want to help you, but
Mm-hmm.
one, not only is there no money in helping you in the way that you would want to be helped,
Mm-hmm.
but two, like you might hate me for what you actually need to do.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like every person you meet, you got to be willing to die, by the sword every single time you meet them. Like, listen, what I'm gonna tell you, you're not gonna like, but it's the
Right.
reality.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's fine. It's fine. And often times they really won't hear it from you. And then down the line, if for whatever reason you can't get it done, somebody else to come and tell them the same thing who most likely look the opposite of you, and they'd be like, okay.
Yeah, no, that's
They'd be
a
like,
hundred
okay.
percent, 100%. I've competed on listings with other brokers, and I'd say every single time that's happened, there's only one time where I'd say it was justified.
Mm-hmm.
The other times, it was only because I think it's only because of who I am,
Mm-hmm.
which I believe had more to do with my age, because I'm dealing with a guy who's uh 60, 70 years old,
Right.
and so
Right.
even though I have the experience and the know-how, I could tell like he was feeling some kind of way, especially when we met,
Mm-hmm.
because you know, we look young. Um, but the other guys, who are that they would normally deal with, they don't look that way. They'll be, Chet and
Mm-hmm.
Brad will be 32 but look like they're 50.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And
It
so
just
he
look different.
felt, yeah, he felt more comfortable going in that direction. And it actually, the listing never at he what's funny is we almost ended up still getting that property on the buy side, but the broker that he went with to list the building didn't do it. He basically fumbled. He had a buyer lined
Mm-hmm.
up, and he just fumbled the whole transaction because he had other deals that were much larger, and so he gave that priority.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so that guy found out that he was like, I'm going over here because these guys know what they're talking about, and they're a larger firm. And then he found out that they don't care about your little 6 unit, you know,
Yep.
building when they're doing 30-40 million dollar deals.
Yep.
So and he's actually very funny because he calls me every now and then, and he owns like a boatyard in Huntington or something. And he calls me sometimes and just rants. Like I don't even get to say a
Mm.
word. He'll just call me, and he'll just start going off. Like, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna just burn the building down. Like
Right.
because he's his situation is weird. It's the only property that he owns. He bought it from a friend who carried the note, but he gave him like 200 grand outside of escrow.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's like, the unit mix isn't really there. Like my cost basis is extremely high. I'm
Mm-hmm.
capped in what I could actually get in value, from rents. So he
Mm-hmm.
understands like he got hosed in the deal
Yeah. Right.
from a friend.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's like, man, I could just burn it down and collect the insurance money. I'm like,
It's funny you say that. Like I've been driving through cities, I'm seeing like a few burnt down buildings.
yeah.
All of a sudden, like once
Mm-hmm.
once the once the recession hit and the pandemic started hitting, I started seeing a lot of burnt down buildings in certain neighborhoods. I'm like, oh, okay, y'all collecting insurance around here.
Yes.
Where like buildings been empty for a while, and they're like, oh, okay, it's the perfect time. It's a lockdown. We'll light this on fire.
Well, because they I think and this is something that gets overlooked a lot. Is like a lot of the mom and pop landlords, they're not like, we have to be savvy because we're handling their problems. So we have to be
Mm-hmm.
able to provide solutions. But they aren't. The people who
Mm-hmm.
are buying buildings on that level and all that, and unless they're like institutional level, if you're buying
Mm-hmm.
properties, a bunch of houses, a bunch of apartment buildings, they're not, they're usually not as savvy because they don't have the same science behind it.
Mm-hmm.
So they just get in and make it work because they had the money to do it.
Yeah.
A lot of times they do things that's just, it doesn't help them. Like in
Mm-hmm.
his situation, he had tenants that were like doing things for him on the premises, so he discounted their rents,
Yeah. Yeah. You're doing
right?
all kind of things just to make it.
And it's like, well, if I'll give you $150 discount if you, cut the grass, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then when you go to sell the building and this tenant isn't paying the full amount, I mean, you can't sell it for market value. You can only sell it based on what your income is.
Yeah.
So if
So
you're
the higher the
thinking
income, the more
more
valuable the
value.
property is.
So if you're trying to value it at, just for the sake of example, just if you're trying to say, oh, I want 1.5 million from my property based on what the rents should be, it's not
Mm-hmm.
going to work because you can only base it on what you collected.
Yeah.
You know,
And the
you
buyer's
can't
not willing
just.
to pay performing prices
That's
based
why
on what
he.
it could
That's why
be.
he was talking about burning it down. He was like, man, listen, the rent should be like, I forgot what it was. He's like, it should be like 1,700, but he's really paying like 1,450. But my rent
Mm-hmm.
roll shows 17. I'm like, it doesn't matter what your rent roll shows. Like,
Right.
So
So
it's
I'm
just,
getting books and records, and I'm not doing that.
yeah. So, but speaking of recession, because I know that's been a hot topic for the past 2 years. How do you see? I know we talk about commercial and like apartments a lot. I think solely just because that kind of gives you a picture of like the overall idea of how real estate is functioning.
Mm-hmm.
But from the residential market, like how do you see things coming in the future with with things reopening and forbearance and all that kind of stuff? Like, what do you see happening? Is it gonna fall apart?
um, I don't think so. I don't think so. Um, I think the main factor I think about often is the low inventory,
Mm-hmm.
and that was before the pandemic. I believe the numbers was we needed like something like 188,000 units, and only like 80,000 was coming to market
Mm-hmm.
every year. So I mean that's a $100,000 deficit or 100,000 unit deficit. I don't know what the numbers are now, but
Worse because
they
we've
didn't get better.
no, we were losing, like, I think on average we were losing like 7 units a day to Ellis Act
Mm-hmm.
applications. So for those of y'all who don't know what an Ellis Act application is or what the Ellis Act is, uh, in a very simple explanation, it's a clause that allows an owner to reclaim their rent controlled property. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one of the ways that if you own a building or you own a house or whatever, that whatever qualifies under a city's rent control ordinance, it's one of the only ways you can take it back and evict everybody. So we were losing like
Mm-hmm.
7 units a day, to that,
Mm-hmm.
and they would take like the duplexes and the fourplexes and all that, and they would tear them down and build single family houses.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
So,
in addition to that, losing units that way, um, you know how difficult it is to actually like get permits in the city. Like they make it impossible. So even if you want to get something permitted or something built, it takes forever. Um, you know, months and months, if not years, to get something permitted. Even if you want to build new property, um, the land cost is expensive.
mm-hmm.
The materials are expensive. Lumber is ridiculous. Steel is crazy. Um, the labor for people who actually build buildings and single family homes is
Mm-hmm.
expensive. Um, so everything's just really expensive, and I don't see that changing anytime soon. So if someone wants to build something, it's more likely going to have to be some type of luxury building, and that's usually what you see. Is you see luxury
Mm-hmm.
apartments, mostly luxury apartments. Where you're paying, 4,000 for 5,000 a month,
Mm-hmm.
depending on where it is. So, and the main housing we need is like, middle class, um, you know, not so much upper middle class, but like middle class that range anywhere between, um, like really like 250 to 400,000
Mm-hmm.
range is like a good range for like the first time buyer. And that is just non-existent. It's just going up and up and up. So I
Mm-hmm.
think we're gonna see people who will continually like be renters, not so much because they want to be renters, but they can't really actually afford to buy anything because there's not enough to buy, and just simple supply and demand. When you don't have enough to buy, the price is raised. The price
Yeah.
goes up. So, um, I know a lot of people say when the written moratorium's over and the forbearance over, people are going to lose their properties. But how would they lose their properties in a market where their properties at an all time high? It's not like it was in 2008 where you couldn't you couldn't get the money, you couldn't get more than what you paid for the property in terms of value. Like that's not a thing anymore. And at that time, if you remember, because we were there, it was overbuilt. They overbuilt
Mm-hmm.
at that time, and they would pay us, crazy amount of fees to have, bring a buyer, willing able buyer at that time. Where typical fee to sell a property was like 3%, and then it was 4, 5, 6%, 10%, 12% to sell like the standing inventory they couldn't get rid of.
Yep.
Um, if you look at the market now, there's no standing inventory. There's
Mm-mm.
there's six. If you go to a new builder, there's 6 to 8 months out to even delivering a property if you're interested today. So it's different. It's completely different. And for the people who might be losing their homes or for whatever reason can't pay their mortgage, they'll just sell at market value and go buy something cheaper. Maybe move out of state, um, put a large
I
down
mean,
payment down,
you would
and
think
and
so.
live happy ever after.
You would think so, and I do think there are more people who would do that versus the opposite of like just losing the house or whatever. But you also you got to remember like this is not like I was telling my mom this because we had a conversation a couple weeks ago, maybe a couple months ago, um just kind of just talking about everything because real estate is a big part of like you know our family conversation.
Mm-hmm.
So we were just talking about prices and whatnot, and and of course I'm over here like the government's gonna raise rates, like prices won't last, blah blah blah, right? So I'm explaining to her like, oh no, what it was is it was when we were thinking about potentially having them downsize, and I was like, well, now's a
Mm-hmm.
good time because you can get a premium for your house, and then you can take all that money and put it as a down payment on the new house, the smaller house.
Mm-hmm.
And then the mortgage wouldn't be nothing, and y'all could retire and just live there in a brand new house that was, because the same rules don't apply as if you're buying if you're buying income property and you sell and then want to go buy something else, it has to be of greater or equal value,
Mm-hmm.
right? If you're going to do an exchange, otherwise you pay
Right.
taxes.
Mm-hmm.
When you're selling a single family home, that's not the case. Like I can just sell my house, and then if you're married at what is it like 500 grand? Anything below 500 grand is tax free.
Yep. Yep.
So they can
If
they
you're
can just
married.
they can take that money and just go and put it down in the new home.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of what we were talking about. And and so my mom was like, "Well, why would I go and put all that money down? Like, why would I give them all my money?" And I was like, "Because when rates go up and prices decline, to a level that where it'll meet the buyers, at least you won't be upside down,
Mm-hmm.
right? Not saying it's gonna fall apart, but naturally, it's safe to assume there would be some type of a pullback if rates go up,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it was just more so like, you know, you can you can just kind of give yourself a cushion. So
Mm-hmm. Right.
that way that way you're not upside down. Um, and she's like, well, I don't see how, I don't see how it would happen, and that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, you have to understand is when you're buying a home, it's more mental and emotional than anything,
Mm-hmm.
right? So um, a person will hold a person who bought a home for 600 grand. Do you think they're going to hold if their home goes down to 200 grand?
Yeah. Yeah, they would.
Are
They're
you
gonna stay
sure?
there.
I don't think everybody would do that. And we saw that during the recession though, because there was a bunch of short sales with people who didn't have to short sell, but they wanted to
Oh,
get
okay.
out
Yeah.
from,
Yeah.
you know what I mean, like to get
Yeah.
out
I
from
get
under
you.
the debt.
Yeah. They're like, it's
So
not worth anything. I'm leaving.
exactly. So
Yeah.
so it was more so along those lines. So
Yeah. At
what you're
that
saying,
time, I was telling people, yeah, yeah, if you go, you should go ahead and short sell, and go buy something for cheaper. At that time, I mean, like, if you would have short sold, if you got in and it was underwater, and you short sold 2009 and bought 2011, that would have been like the perfect play
hmm
because you get in at a lower property at you basically getting at bottom market value as it's on the rise again. But some people held on, and some people just
well, because who
sold, and some
you
people
got to you got to
started
think
renting.
about
Some people
you
been
got to
renting
think
for the
about
last 10 years.
you got to think about what that means to them though. Like people don't get divorced because they think it's a failure,
Mm-hmm.
even if it might be the right thing to do. But they won't get divorced because they see it as I failed at marriage. I would rather make
Mm-hmm.
this last however long versus failing in front of everyone at
Mm-hmm.
marriage. So if you
Right.
go out and you buy a home and prices do decline, would they short sell? It like that's
I
I
don't
think
know.
that's the X factor in my opinion, because one, even with the forbearance and all that, and I know there's like a certain percentage of people who already are basically defaulted. It's
Mm-hmm.
not as great as you would think, but it's a big enough number to to um you wouldn't just bat an eye at. I think it's like
Mm-hmm.
20%, um, which might not seem like a lot, but that's a decent amount of people who have defaulted.
Mm-hmm.
But I think where the misconception comes is when people think that inventory would just be like available. like,
Yeah, I mean,
like
default doesn't mean your home's been foreclosed on
yeah.
and now it's available for purchase. And if you if okay, let's say we're gonna go down that right route. Somebody default, the lender foreclosed on their property, and now it's up for sale. It's an REO or real estate owned
Mhm.
property. Why would the bank sell that property at a discount when they can sell it for market value on the open market? Because people think when people default, they're getting a discount. They're getting the property for cheap. But if you remember, those few years ago, we had what was called shadow inventory. It
Mhm.
was property that was defaulted on, foreclosed, and the bank just held on to it
Mhm.
until the market recovered, and then they sold at a better return.
Mhm.
So why wouldn't they do that again?
Who's to say they aren't doing it already? Who's to say it's not like common practice?
Yeah. So it's just like, and and in addition to that, the competition for those properties are so beyond the everyday FHA buyer that's running around trying to get a good deal,
Mhm.
or a VA loan, or 25% down buyer, whatever it is. Because you have investors going to come by and say, I have 100% buying cash.
Mhm.
You don't have to do anything. Don't worry about anything. I'll just buy cash and I'll take on everything. So for the typical everyday buyer or consumer, like, that inventory is not going to be reserved for you. When people say, they're hoping the market's going to go down, it's because they want to buy a cheaper property. That's the only reason.
Oh, of course. But there's a
And
lot.
and they don't
There's a lot that
remember.
goes with that. Yeah.
They don't remember those times. Those times was horrible. And we don't even consider that. I don't see a crash. I can see maybe a pullback or things being flat. So let's just say, for number set standpoint, if medium property is like 600,000, maybe it might stay that for a few years. Um, Even if it went down 10%, that's not helping anybody who who wasn't a
Yeah,
purchaser,
I mean,
purchasing anyway, or wasn't in the market. So
it'll all come down to the financing. Like if the
yeah.
money is easily accessible and it's cheap, then deals will continue to get done. But um, again, the Fed just came out Wednesday, or yeah, Wednesday, and said that again they plan to raise rates uh, in
In
2023.
2023.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, right now, I mean the party's going. There's nothing.
Hmm. Yeah.
Only thing stopping that is just people just getting to a point of saying like wait a minute, what are we doing? Because that
Hmm.
happens. Like anytime there's an event going on, you then have the following of the event, because that's the speculators, the FOMO, and then
Hmm.
eventually you get to a point where everybody's like, wait a minute, like why am I doing this?
Hmm.
It's like people look up for a second and say, maybe this ain't that smart, and
Hmm.
but as long as the money's there, people will borrow. I mean, because they're doing things. I heard about this thing called an escalation clause that you
Hmm.
submit with your offer, and
Yeah.
basically what it is say there's a list. Say you have a client, you have a buyer, right? You have a buyer who just sold their house. They want to buy another one. Um, the house they're looking at is say like 700 grand, right?
Hmm.
Um, but we already know it's not going to sell for 700 grand. It's going to sell for more. So when you
Hmm.
submit your offer, you on an addendum, you have to submit a escalation clause saying the highest number you will go.
Right. Right. Yeah. I haven't seen that since the days I was reading my textbooks to get my license. I haven't seen a scenario like that.
I just feel like that's pointless. Like if
Yeah.
the house is 700 grand, and but my my escalation clause says the highest I can go is 750. Why not just offer 750?
Hmm. Yeah. Well, I can see. And then it's just like, what stops the seller from saying, "Yeah, I have 730, I have 740, I have 750."
No, that's what they do. They bring it in and they say, okay, we've got 10 offers at 700, and three of them can go to 750. All right, let's counter
Yeah.
best and final for 765.
Yeah. It's like, I don't know. It just seems like extra paperwork.
It's realtors making their job harder, and that's all it is.
It's just extra paperwork.
They want to feel
You
like they're
tell
doing
clients,
something.
you look, you either put your highest and best in. This ain't the market to be playing around in.
Realtors
It's
like
not the
to
market.
back in the day it was the fax. They like to fax things. So it's not faxing no more. It's like
Yeah.
emails of back and forth.
Yeah.
Like I gotta send this counter offer of a counter offer.
Yeah.
Um,
I get physically angry when someone asks me to fax something. It hasn't happened in like in a few years, but I still have a fax. It's like a digital fax now, so I still pay for it. It's just there, just in case a realtor from the '80s like ask me to fax something or want to fax me something.
do you have you noticed in any of the commission splits kind of shrinking?
Yeah, especially at you know property. I would say maybe like 600,000, 800,000 and up.
Mhm.
Um, and it's always one of those things where um, in a hot market, owners start to believe they don't need realtors, or they feel like um, you're less valuable in a market where, look, I can sell my property on my own. I really just need you to do paperwork.
Yeah, not for real.
So, but I mean, I'm not selling that house personally.
Yeah,
I'm not
man.
selling that building. So, Yeah, I
So
seen
for
something on the market for the fee was a 0.5% to bring a
that's
buyer,
stupid. Like that's
and it's been on the market like 40 days, 45 days in a hot market. I'm like, yeah, there's a lot of brokers who boycotted this listing. Like, no, thank you.
yeah. I mean the guys who need it will take it. If you need the money, you'll take that listing.
And the seller wanted like I believe it's listed for like 800,000. They said they got offers at eight 818, but the seller countered for 880. It's like, what are you
Yeah.
doing?
So we back.
Yeah, so
Had some technical difficulties. Um, but we back. I know we probably boring y'all with all this real estate talk, but it's what we do. So sorry.
put my glasses back on
Um,
for continuity.
but you know what? For continuity, what I will say though, something we can laugh at real quick is have you heard what happened to Mark Cuban?
No.
So he's been pumping this coin for y'all who don't know. He's been pumping this cryptocurrency called Titan, I think it's called. I didn't do no research. You know, I was too busy laughing at the title to do research.
Tell
But
that douchebag would invest in that.
I think it's called Titan. I don't know. So he's been pumping it and it went to like $60 the other day. And then yesterday it went to zero. Right. So this is why I say like this is why I say
Right.
all the time, and it's like the overall message of our podcast. Let the rich people gamble.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we're not trying to tell you not to go make some money or, you know, whatever. Let them gamble. Because if he goes and he invests 75 grand or 100 grand in something like that and he loses it, that's nothing. But if you
Yeah.
go and take your last $800 and invest in Safe Moon or Safe Coin to the Moon or whatever,
The latest
and
thing.
yeah, and you don't understand it, so you just holding it, and then it goes to zero, like that could break you.
Yeah.
So let these people gamble. You don't have to if you're comfortable with doing that, then fine. If you have the means to do that, then fine. But don't if you're a regular person, man, and you just trying to make, you know, put things together, don't be out here gambling on stuff like that thinking like it'll save you, cuz
Mm-hmm.
that's not that's not fruitful. Like you need to build up your reserves, you know, before you go do things like that or begin to invest in, you know, like we mentioned last week, somebody's random investment fund or real estate syndication. Like these things require private placement memorandums and you don't qualify, right? Like it's fine. I don't qualify. Like you know what I mean? So there's no need to be rushing into this stuff, man. But I just thought it was
Yeah.
funny that it went to zero for someone who was so bullish. And it also goes to show you like how much money you have don't matter. Like you could be stupid all the time.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. I was just thinking, you know, there's a lot of people who say, you talked about like just not touching those things. There's a lot of people pushing people to even like build credit and get credit cards and put them into their business or investments.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to figure out why anybody would ever do that. And I was thinking you shouldn't even really bother with credit cards unless you have the cash, the limit in cash that's available to pay it off. So whatever that card is, if it's $500, you need to have at least $500 in the bank to
Mm-hmm.
pay it off, available to pay off if you want to use it. If it's 10,000, it should be 10,000 in the bank available to pay off if you need to pay it off. Um, but I think people are trying to teach people to leverage debt and somehow make some type of return.
Yes. No,
And it's
I
just
mean
like,
the money is cheap, right? So it's not that these okay. So if we go back to 2008, where they had stated loans and option arms and all that kind of
mm-hmm,
stuff, right? In commercial real estate, that's normal. Like if you buy a property, it's likely you'll have 5-year financing, and in 5 years you'll have to refinance 3, 5,
Right.
7, or 10. In
Mm-hmm.
residential, it's not like that. But
Mm-hmm.
once these programs became available to people, it's like, oh, I only have to pay a minimum interest only payment for 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Yep.
sure,
I'll
I could
take it now.
refinance. Yeah, I could refinance by then. I'll have more money. But
Yep.
the way you compute value is different. The way you calculate value is different, right? So it's not that these things are bad. Like these practices are necessarily bad. It's just bad for you to do them.
They're just not. They're not reserved for everyone, and that's why
No.
even when I say you had to leverage, you have to have the money. And if you don't have the money, you're gonna put yourself in a bad position. That's why I say just. I mean, the simple rule of just having the cash equal to your limit is going to save you. Like you
Hmm.
don't just use the cash, or you don't just use the credit and hope that you're going to make money back to pay it off. That's the best way to get in debt.
Well, it's
Um,
the hustle. It's the hustle culture, right? So everybody has to start a job because or start a business because jobs suck, and no one should ever have to work a job, and your employer hates you. All those things might be true, right? Your employer probably does hate you, but the fact of the matter is, like, usually people still have to go to work. And if you notice it, all the guys who say that all make money from people who need to go to work.
yeah,
You know, like
yeah,
these are all people who they should be out um increasing the value of their time, not it. But it's without getting too deep. That's what it is. So it's a thing of, well, you can get business funding, right? Because I mean, this has been around forever. This is not new. Like
mm-hmm.
these guys might tell you it's new, and they feel like, oh, this the new wave. No, this has been around since the 70s and 80s. Um, but like business funding and all that, like that's nothing new. That was around back in the day. Um, I say back in the day, like I'm 80, but
Right. I was
you
there.
know,
I was there.
but that's all it is. They're leveraging business credit to go out and have working capital for their businesses.
That's so
That's
dangerous.
that's essentially what it
But
is.
I mean, I get that people do that on all levels. I mean,
But it's
even
this is see this is why it's hard for me to um I don't well I guess I can say respect. It's not that I dislike a lot of these internet guys. It's just it's hard to respect them because I know if we were to have a conversation about how the business operates, we could never actually get into specifics,
mm,
right? Because they wouldn't tell you that because it's how they make money.
yeah, it's
You know,
surface level information. And
they
when people actually get into the business, they're gonna lose.
they're not going to tell you what they actually did to make the money.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to say a bunch of things that sound good because
Mm-hmm.
that's the line of work they're in. If we bring somebody on who runs a laundromat, they're going to tell you about how to get into the laundromat business. If
Mm-hmm.
we bring somebody on who owns a franchise like Ralph, they're going to tell you he's going to tell you what he did to become a franchisee,
Mm-hmm.
right? But if you bring one of these internet guys on, they're not going to tell you what they did for marketing. They're not going to talk about it from a marketing perspective because that's how they make money, by
Mm-hmm.
lying. And they're not going
Or
to sit here and talk
practical.
about how they lied, right?
Right. Right.
So that's why it's hard for me to like really have a certain level of respect because
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like we can't have that conversation of what's really going into you making money in your business. Your business is not what you're showing us. The actual business is advertisements and so on and so forth. So what they do is they
Mm-hmm.
package all this together, right? So it's like, okay, you come to me for the business credit and we'll get you set up. We'll get you some business credit. And then you can leverage that business credit to go buy other depreciating assets that you could then turn into or depreciating liabilities you could turn into assets,
Mm.
right? So you can take that credit and then go buy an exotic car or a nicer car, and now you can put it on Turo, right? So it's a whole circle. It's a whole circle of buy some bullshit and make money off it. You can buy clothes, you can buy designer clothes and all that, and you can rent them. You can rent them out. Now I knew this was a thing for women. I knew women did this. Like you can go, I think it's called rent the runway or something, where you can
Mm-hmm.
like rent outfits and
Yeah,
send them back,
yeah,
right? But apparently it's like a real thing, like where you can buy clothes and just rent them.
yeah.
You
It's, it's weird.
so so it's all based in all of it is based in the look. So again, going back to what I was saying is in terms of like having a certain level of respect is because we could never bring them on or even just have a candid conversation about how their business is about building the look. Because if they say
Mm-hmm.
that, it goes against everything else they do, right? But
Yeah.
that's what it is. It's we're gonna get you the credit, we're gonna get you the Turo cars, we're gonna get you the designer clothes. You can leverage your points. You spend the money on ad. Like it's a whole cycle of stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, Now it doesn't mean that if you give business credit that you can use it in other ways. Absolutely, you don't have to follow what they do, but that's where it comes from, though. It comes from we'll give you the money, we'll show you how to get the money by um, by setting up payments with certain vendors that we know, so you can build your score up and all
Mm-hmm.
that. All that kind of stuff. Like it's not new though. That stuff is not new. People have done credit partnerships and all that. That's been around, like trade lines, and none of that is new.
Yeah.
There's nothing new. Like none of this stuff is new.
Mm-hmm.
I'm
I'm just
34.
worried. I'm worried about that. For someone who's new to business and new to these different concepts and leveraging money, someone who works a job, who's been working a job for 10, 15 years, and they have a set amount of income, now getting a windfall of money at one time and knowing how to leverage it
Mm-hmm.
correctly. Um, that percentage of people, I think, is small, even for people who've been leveraging for years. Um, so I'm worried. I'm worried that a lot of people are getting in a lot of trouble trying to leverage high
Oh, of
amounts
course.
of debt without having any experience doing it. If you've been paying your bills and you left with $200 after you paid everything, and now you have a $20,000 card, like that person has no experience in leveraging that amount of debt,
But
and
that's that.
they have no way to pay it off once they've ran up the bill.
I'll tell you how
If
they
if
do.
you spend $7,000, $8,000 on that card, how could you ever pay it off with your $200 windfall, your $200 um, cash flow from your job? They're
They
hoping
don't.
that the business is going to pay it off.
It comes from the Turo rentals or whatever else that you bought into. But here's the kicker, right? This is why I say it all feels like an MLM, because what ultimately happens is these guys go out and do that, and even the ones who have success, because there's some who have success with it. Um, Now, in order for them to service a lot of that debt that they're making, they have to find more ways to make money, because just having the vehicles isn't enough.
Mm-hmm.
It's nice. I got all the cars I want, and I can rent them and technically drive them if I want to, right? But I don't have enough to really service the debt and live the way I want. So, okay, so what can I
Not
do?
even just the debt, the maintenance.
That too.
No one talks about maintenance either.
So what is it that I can do to bring in another source of revenue? I can do a course.
Yeah.
I can do a Turo course.
Now you're out the business and on to the education portion of it.
That's why it's all the same. It's one big cycle. Like it's one huge cycle of everybody doing the same things because it's and I'm not hating. Like I'm not mad at y'all.
You just not
Anybody,
a believer, King.
yeah, like you
You
know,
just don't want people to win,
I,
King.
anytime somebody say that, like I already know, like I'm not talking to this person ever again. But like, but yeah, it's I'm not hating, bro. It's just I understand. Like I'm man, this ain't my first rodeo. So I understand how this. I understand how a person can make 100 grand, 200 grand in a month, um, even more. Like and it seems like this is it. Like this is gonna be forever, and it's not
Gotta
because
be
this is
careful about how sustainable it's going to be for sure,
yeah because this is not
and
how that's not
scalable.
how that's not how business works. That's hitting the lick. That's a hustle. That's not how business works. We want to talk about business. There's a guy who's he's Croatian, right? He's a Croatian dude. He's the same age as us. He started his company called Remock Motors back in like 2009. Built a car, right? He builds a car. It gets test driven, um, rave reviews, right? Fast as hell. But he's just a really
Mhm.
small. He's a really small car builder. Doesn't have the resources to really expand on that level. So, there's only so much he can do, right? Builds a second car. Second car is just as good, right? If not better, actually. Same issue, just doesn't really have the amount of resources.
Mhm.
Porsche goes and gives him like $50 million or something like that. They own like 24% of his company.
Mhm.
So I'm assuming, because I don't know, but I'm assuming much of the technology that's in their new Taycan, which is like their four-door electric vehicle, their Tesla competitor.
Mhm.
I'm assuming much of their tech in that came from came from Mate Rimac,
Mhm.
um, or he had some kind of hand in fine tuning it to some degree because his car was dope. I know he offered some. I don't know if he licensed out some of his stuff to Aston Martin, but I know he worked with them on one of their projects.
Mhm.
Um, I believe he also worked with Hyundai. I think Hyundai actually owns a portion of the company, like 15%.
Mhm.
Um, but then like a year or two, I think like a year ago, he bought Bugatti, right? Because what people don't know, or you don't have a reason to know, unless
What
you're a
country is
nerd.
he from?
He's from Croatia.
Mm.
So
Wonder what he did
Bugatti,
before.
I don't know. When you're from places like that, I just assume,
Just anybody just doesn't just
yeah,
go and build a car.
no. Um, I'm sure he has history or something that got him to that point because you
Mhm.
don't just pop up that way.
Yeah.
Um, but anyway, so he bought Bugatti, right? Bugatti is owned by Volkswagen, the Volkswagen Group, right? And Volkswagen owns Bugatti, Lamborghini, Audi, um, Volkswagen, uh, all these different companies. And the reason why they can make those types of cars is because they have so many brands that produce so much income. They can build these super high end luxury cars, even sometimes at a loss, because they make up for it with other brands, right?
Mhm.
It allows for them to service these vehicles in a different way because they're using parts internally, like basically from a parts bin, right?
Mhm.
So if you bought a Bugatti, you can take your Bugatti somewhere in America to go get fixed, and it would be done, you know, in the right amount of time.
Mhm.
Um,
They just
which is
Frankenstein in cars.
in a way, yeah. I mean, to some degree, that's definitely part of it. But the point is when you're that type of company, you have the ability to do these kinds of things. They completely revamped Lamborghini. Like Lamborghini's gone bankrupt twice. It's been sold twice,
Mhm.
right? It's it the,
Mm.
the first owner went bankrupt and he sold it to some guys, and then um they came out with like the Diablo and in the 90s and all that. And then Volkswagen took over like 99 2000, and their first car was a Murcielago, and then from the Murcielago then to the Aventador, and they also introduced the Gallardo, which was like the smaller one, entry level car, to now the Huracan, right?
Let's
So
get their funds up.
they actually built out the brand to where the Huracan and now the Urus, the SUV, are like some of the most highest selling vehicles in that class. If not, I think they lead in terms of which is like a new sector, like luxury sport, super sports SUV.
SUV, right?
Yeah, but they sell tons of those. You could drive around LA and see 1,000 of them in a day.
Makes sense though. The SUV market was killing it anyway. That was a good market to get into. That was
Yeah.
smart.
So
That and the pickup truck.
and they're only like 280. Like, I don't want to say only, but they're only like, relative
Only
to
like
someone
280.
who's relative to, like, if you want to buy a Rolls Royce SUV, that's 350, 400 grand. You know what I mean? If you want to buy it's a lot of money, but for what you're getting in the car, it's not, compared to the rest of the market, it's not that bad
Mm-hmm.
for someone who can afford to go do that. So anyway, so he's buying Bugatti, and which is interesting because it's like, well, is Bugatti going to be all electric now? Because all his cars are electric. So is it going to run on his technology and be an all electric vehicle? But now it's going to be a completely different brand if he owns it, because it's no longer VW, right? So um, it's going to be a whole different thing. Just like with Mercedes, Mercedes had Maybach, and they built every Maybach at a loss until ultimately they couldn't do it anymore. And now Maybach is just a badge.
Does Bugatti have like the infrastructure or like the factories to build? Like, why would you buy that?
Well, I mean, why would it's a company. Why, it might not be worth, like, every company has a
But why
price.
would you buy it and change it though into a like electric vehicle?
Well, because it's his now. It's no longer VW's. So
Mm-hmm.
Bugatti before VW wasn't what you know it today. Same with Lamborghini. Lamborghini before
Mm-hmm.
VW wasn't what you know it as today.
Mm-hmm.
VW gave them identities. When
Right.
they gave you a certain identity with these vehicles and the experience
Mm-hmm.
and the lifestyle. So now if you're taking it away from them, it's not going to be the same because you don't have the same resources that VW has.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Right.
So
Right.
now you're taking on, unless certain things come with, the purchase and all that, because he owns 55%. So I'm pretty sure VW still might own some of it, but he's going to own the majority share. Right. So he's going to make some changes. They might work together on some things, but his company will own 55% of Bugatti.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Um, so anyway, I said all that to say this guy's been wrenching away on his little electric car for the for the past 15, 20 years, and he's looking to go public soon.
Mm-hmm.
And he's looking at a $5 billion valuation, right?
What's up?
So, and he's 34. So here we are. This is what I mean by, I talk a lot of shit, right? I get it. I like to laugh at people. It's fun. People laugh at me. That's how you
Mm-hmm.
grew up. You make jokes about people. It doesn't matter if you buff, skinny, whatever. We're gonna make jokes about you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, but when I talk about, like, or when we talk about thinking big, like, that's what I mean. So here you have a guy who's been doing the same thing for 10, 15, 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
Now he's going for the big bag, right? Doesn't even matter if his company is profitable. Like, the money is there at the moment for him to go public,
That's the crazy part.
right? And then on the flip side, I'm over here and I'm supposed to respect and appreciate a guy who is telling you to leverage credit points.
Mm-hmm.
I'm supposed to respect him in the business world. I'm supposed to not say nothing or be critical about someone who operates in that way. because he's telling you to leverage credit card points or something. Like, do you know what else is going on outside? like, like, yo, we are losing. Okay, like,
It's
we
a
are
whole world
losing,
out here.
man. We are losing out here. That's just me. I'm passionate about that kind of stuff. I know other people aren't, but that's how I look at it. So no, I'm not interested in. I don't know. I'm not even gonna go deep into that. It's just that to me, like that's what when I say think large and you know, go out here and actually do something that'll employ thousands of people, you know, it might be tough to think about, especially in our age, because like the average entrepreneur, I believe, is like 45 or 50
Mm-hmm.
in terms of like actually, you know, running a startup.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but but like that's what I mean. It doesn't change. It doesn't waver. This guy's been doing the same thing. You know what I mean? He's been
Yeah.
doing the same thing. Even it doesn't matter what you call it. It could be called anything. He's been doing the same thing. Like it's just it's been the same for almost 20 years. And now he can go
Yep.
public. And he's looking at a $5 billion evaluation. $5 billion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's just
And you want me to go to some credit
testament to
conference? Like, come on, man.
that's a testament to just sticking to what you know, sticking to what you know, sticking to a real profession, and eventually you can go public.
That's the goal. I mean, that's the only way we're gonna like for us to make any type of real progress. It has to come through business and politics.
Mm-hmm.
It has to. Like there has to be some type of radical shift with our involvement in politics and business at that level. Like sure, we might face some more roadblocks with valuations and stuff and you know underwriters. That's fine, but we'll deal with that when we get there. Right now, none of us are
Mm-hmm.
there to even be able to know if they're racist. We don't even know.
Mm-hmm.
You wouldn't even know if the investment bank is racist or because you're not there. None of us are there. like none of us,
It's like
none
let's
of us are
pull up.
there. Yeah, man. So again, it's not that I dislike these guys, and it's just man, when you've been exposed to certain things, it just seems really corny, and I'm just vocal about it. But
Mm.
it's just kind of whack, like you said, like telling people to get credit cards and leverage them to go do all these things, and it's like, man, there's guys our age that are out here changing the world.
Yeah, it's just dangerous.
So that's my grumpy old man rant for the night.
Yeah, we appreciate that. Where we at for this? Because we've been going on.
I don't know, man.
It's getting late.
I don't know.
I mean, we
I
probably
don't
want
know.
to wrap up because I'm about to go to sleep. Yeah, we even started late.
Yeah, this is
Getting
the late
later.
the late show part two. Okay, so well, but there is something else I wanted to bring up to you though, so we can
Mm-hmm.
talk about this and wrap up. Um, the whole issue about the because I read an article about it today, but I didn't really go in depth. The Crenshaw Mall.
Mm-hmm.
Are you familiar with that whole situation?
Remind me. I
Okay,
think we talked about it before.
so apparently the Crenshaw Mall, right, was sold um, at some point, maybe last year or something, and ultimately somehow deal fell apart. Right, I think the
Mm-hmm.
community came together and they were able to uh, hold things off.
Mm-hmm.
So from my understanding, the they came together And I don't know if the money came through donations or just contributions from people involved locally, but they were
Mm-hmm.
able to raise like $28 million
Where they
to
asking for it?
purchase to yeah to purchase the mall.
That's the asking price.
No. That's just the money they came up with to buy the mall.
Okay. All
Right.
right.
So if there's going to be some kind of debt involved, I'm not sure. I don't know the particulars.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but a mall of that size, depending on the tenants, I can see it being worth more than 28 million. Um, I could be wrong. I could be totally
So
wrong because I didn't.
who qualifies for that loan in a group of uh, um, in that fundraising situation?
Well, you're gonna have someone who's like a you know like a guarantor of sorts, either an
Mm.
entity or but
Is there?
most of that will take place on your end of the deal versus like between the lender,
Yeah,
right?
of
Because
course.
just like in a DST, like a Delaware
It's like
statutory
who's the
trust,
actual borrower
it'll be
if they're using debt.
the corporation will then the corporation will buy in my experiences with DSTs, Delaware Statutory Trust, which usually operates similarly, where they'll buy a building, obtain a master lease, and then
Mm-hmm.
they'll give everyone basically interest with the master lease. I'm assuming
Mm-hmm.
it could work some similar to that.
Mm-hmm.
They'll create a master lease with another entity of theirs. The master lease will hold all the investors, so each investor will have, you know, a portion based on that.
Right.
Um, so I don't know the whole. I got to really do research on it. I don't. You would think by now I'd be more. Um, I'd have more of that readily available when we talk about this stuff. But 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 so yeah, so they somehow created like a community trust. I don't know what it is. I'm not even gonna try to understand it. But they I guess put a proposal together or a bid to purchase the building, and I don't know if it's a broker involved or an auction house. I don't know, but ultimately
Mm-hmm.
they chose another buyer from downtown somewhere.
Okay.
So it's like, okay, we have the money, we want to buy it, and they said that's cool. We're gonna go over here,
Mm.
right?
Cold as ice.
So I forgot the guy's name, but I think they marched to his house or something. Um,
The new
and
buyer,
yeah,
the new end buyer.
yeah, and
That's
you know
wild.
what? We're gonna have somebody else talk about this. um, no, because this can get really, really in depth, and
Mm-hmm.
I want to make sure I say the right things. But basically, that's kind of what I read today. That's kind of what it is. So they're trying to figure out a way to claim ownership and actually purchase the building, um, and operate it on their own.
Mm.
And they're upset because they went and chose another buyer from a different area.
Right. I wonder for what reasons.
Well, it happens a lot. I mean, I've submitted offers that were actually like when the building closed, when I looked through the comps, and my offer was more and cleaner, but the broker probably had a relationship with the guy and he knew
Mm.
it could get done.
Yeah, that's why I asked them what reasons. They might just. I mean, sometimes you have an end buyer, like you said. They know they can perform, and it is what it is. So, I mean, that's most likely what happened.
Yeah, I mean, because it's normal. It's normal in that sense. But if you're not involved, it can look like something else is going on.
Yeah, you're most likely gonna go to the players who performed in the past.
That's what I would do. I mean, that's most
And,
deals like that get done
mm-hmm,
off market anyway, because As soon as they come in, if I've got 3 guys who I know can close on that deal, it's going straight to them before it goes anywhere. That's just how the business works.
That's typical. Yep.
I'm gonna look more into it. So that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna do some more homework so we can have a real conversation about it. And we can bring it up. Maybe next week we can follow up on it. But I just thought that was interesting given the current climate. You know, that they raised $28 million. But then it's like, who's gonna manage the bit? Like, you know, I gotta read.
Yeah, I got a lot more questions for that.
I gotta read. I gotta go holler at Ursula and get my reading ability back.
No, you didn't want to read. You want the 50 million.
Man, I still do, but I gotta
now you're lost.
I gotta go see what's going on because, I would like to know who's involved on their side because it's like, is it worth buying and holding on to it if you're gonna mismanage it? Not saying they will, but just if no one has any experience, you just have the money.
Right.
Well, it's like, would the city even allow that? Like, I
don't know. That's just, that's assuming that they don't have the experience off top. So I don't know.
No. So I'd have to go.
I don't know much about it.
I'm sure there's some people involved who have some level of experience running a property like that, but it's just from the outside looking in.
They got some experience raising funds, that's for sure. So
yeah, it's a lot of money.
Just nobody don't just raise 28 million.
Well, the donors, you'd be surprised who the donors were. It was some big names in there, like it wasn't. It's one of those things where people will give because of what's going on, not really because of what the outcome is going to be.
Yeah.
In those moments,
there's a lot of symbolic things going on.
Yeah. In those moments, there's a lot of money for that because it's it's a PR situation. So I'm gonna do some research, man. I'm gonna do some research next week.
Let's come back to that.
We can come back to that because I got a lot of questions on that, and I don't want to sound like an idiot. So yeah, it's been another episode of Rich by Monday. I want to thank y'all for coming and hanging out with us. Always remember to like, comment, and subscribe. We got to get our get the YouTube algorithm on our side. Any last words, Dorrance?
Thank you for the 54 people that's here. Thanks for showing up, and we'll see you next week.
Yep. Dorrance about to go to sleep.
Yep, I'm going to sleep.
All right, y'all.
Later.